the dice. This is it. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
The grand salami!
Willie, Mickey, and the Duke.
Welcome to Fed Up, the number one podcast where you can get up on all things Federal League. I am your host, Josh Stoll. We've got a great episode lined up for you this week. Our guest is the head of the Hastings Hurricanes. He's the voice of the Hastings Raiders. He's an award-winning media personality with the made-for-radio voice and the long-flowing locks perfect for TV. None other than Mr. Nick Tuckner. We had a chance to sit down with him and discuss the inception story of the Hastings Hurricanes. We also chatted a little bit about the success that they're having this season. It was an absolute blast spending some time with Tuck. I know you're going to enjoy that segment. Before we get to our guest, we are going to look at a couple of games that had a tremendous impact on the seeding for playoffs. We'll look at a document that Lars Larson has put out on the Federal League website that highlights where everyone would go in terms of the AAA all the way down through the B if the season were to start today. Of course, we'll give you our updated Fed Up power rankings. Let's go ahead and jump right into the baseball. Candidate for Game of the Week featured the East Metro Mammoth traveling to Castle Field to take on the Minoka Grays. A lot of notables not present at this one. There's no Matt Grill, no Jack Nelson, no Tom Corcoran. Tons of big names up and down the lineup for both sides nonetheless. Ken Wangler on the mound for the East Metro Mammoth, while Bub Lovis went for the Minoka Grays. Definitely a pitcher's duel. This got started in the second when Dan Smolik had an RBI single. Put the East Metro Mammoth up 1-0. Hegerness added to that total with an RBI single of his own in the third. They're finally able to get a run across the board against Wangler in the fifth inning. That made it 2-1, but the Mammoth added an insurance run in the top of the seventh, and they would need it because the Grays did threaten in the bottom of the seventh, but come up just a run short. The final from Castle Field was the East Metro Mammoth 3, the Minoka Grays 2. Mammoth out-hit the Grays in this one 10-5. Both pitchers were brilliant. Bub Lovis goes all 7. He gave up 10 hits, 3 runs, just 2 of them earned, walked 2 and struck out 6. Ken Wangler threw all 7 innings, getting the win, gave up just 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks while striking out 5. Mike Lippert and Dave Buckner all had 2 hits for the Mammoth. Michael Crane went 2 for 3 for the Grays. Matt Carter also with a hit and a run scored. The game to keep an eye out when it came to the AAA bracket took place last night, July 2nd, when the Rockford Rail Splitters traveled to Lions Field to take on the Waconia Islanders. The Waconia Islanders got the scoring started in the first with the run, added 2 more in the third and 1 in the fifth. The score 4-0 before the Rail Splitters finally got those bats going and scoring a run in the sixth. Credit goes to Adam Paternos for keeping the Rail Splitters, who had been torching pitching to this point in the season. He goes 5 1/3, allowing just 3 hits and 1 earned run, striking out 5. Got the win, and Eric Olson stitched it up for the Waconia Islanders. The Rockford Rail Splitters started with Jesse Berg, who does take the loss in this game. Buzz Hanahan was great. He went 3 innings, allowing 4 hits and 3 runs. A little uncharacteristic for the Rail Splitters to have just those 3 hits. Huge credit to Waconia's pitching. These two teams are going to go back at it again next Tuesday night, July 9th, when Waconia now will travel to Rockford. They'll play at Rockford High School. That first pitch is scheduled for 7 o'clock. Now, just what kind of impact those games had on the postseason standings, you can go to the Federal League's website and look at the front page there on the banner scrolling across. Look for the tab called Rankings. You'll see all 34 teams, where they would fall into each bracket. East Metro Mammoth, with that win, moved to 13-0. They are sitting tied atop the entire Federal League standings with the Lakeville Lobos, comfortably in cruise control, leading the American League East Division. With that win, overtake the Rockford Rail Splitters for the top spot in the American League West. They move to 8-1. Rockford falls to 9-2. If the season were to end today, Lots of ties would have to be sorted out in that AAA division, but the Lakeville Lobos would take on the 8 seed, the Rockford Rail Splitters. You'd have the East Metro Mammoth taking on the Rosemount Pipers in that 7 seed. Just some absolutely stacked teams in this AAA. The Burnsville Bulldogs would be your 3, taking on the Tonka Bay Lakers, and the Waconia Islanders would take on the Minoka Grays in the 4-5 matchup. Tipping on Rockford's heels are those Hastings Hurricanes. They are 8-2. If they're able to finish out that rain-shortened game with a win against Burnsville, they would just a half game back in that division and tied with the Rail Splitters for that wild card. The rest of the AA is filled with the likes of Newmarket, Milltown, South Metro Saints have cooled off a little bit. They sit now at 6-4 solidly in that AA. The Minnetonka Saints are also at 6-4, along with the Groupers. The Loons finish up at 6-5, and the Norsemen would be your 8 seed in the AA at 6-6. To show you just how deep our league is, when we take a look at the A, the 1 seed there currently is the TC Snappers at 5-6. That's a pretty darn good team to be in the A division. They would be taking on the 8 seed, the Apple Valley A's. The Chesapeake Voyagers would run into the Vesely Vulcans. The Elko Chuggers would play the St. Paul JTs, and the Cannons and Angels would match up in a 4-5 matchup. Obviously, lots of baseball left in the month of July. Some teams not even to the halfway point of their season. They're going to be awfully busy. When you look at a team like Eden Prairie or the RC Rockets, they're going to have 11 games in just about 3 weeks left of the season. It will definitely be a test of who has the pitching, who has the depth, who can get their roster to show up. Lots of time left for teams like the St. Croix Valley Silverbacks and the Lonsdale Jokers to crawl out of the B bracket. The only team looking for their first win yet, the Red West Legends, sitting at 0-10. Everybody else has been able to find the win column. Lots of games left on the Red West schedule. Perhaps they can find their inspiration as they are going to go down to the Field of Dreams over the 4th of July holiday and take on the Lakeville Lobos. You can expect there to be lots of jockeying up and down the leaderboard here, as it seems a lot of teams have backweighted a lot of their more difficult games. So July is just absolutely jam-packed with some must-see matchups, whether it's East Metro Mammoth taking on the Rosemount Pipers or the Hastings Hurricanes. The Burnsville Bulldogs will run into Hastings twice. They'll play the Pipers and the Lobos. Of course, there's an aforementioned matchup between Rockford and Waconia that will have a lot to do with the final standings in the American League West. Time now for our Fed Up Power Rankings. Closer to the playoffs, we don't want this to look just like a list of the seeding. Anyone can go onto the websites and see, which team is seeded first, which team is seeded 8th. We don't want it to just be a mere representation of that. So this will be ranked from 10 to 1 of the teams that we think have the best chance of winning the AAA playoffs. At number 10, the Newmarket Northerns, they are sitting at 7-3. They have the pitching, they have the experience. Can they pull it together in terms of getting everybody on the same page and pursuing another deep playoff run? Remains to be a question that will be answered here in the final weeks of the season. But at number 10, the Newmarket Northerns. Number 9, the Hastings Hurricanes. They are at 8-2 via a couple of forfeit wins against Webster. Hastings has some great pitching. They have some experience in this league. But obviously, being newcomers, there's going to be a lot of first-time questions that will need to be answered in the postseason. We've got the Hastings Hurricanes sitting at number 9. Number 8, after their recent loss to Waconia, we have the Rockford Rail Splitters. This team can hit. We know that. Do they have the pitching to play a couple of big games over a long weekend? They, of course, if they end up being that wild card, will have to take on a top seed like the Lakeville Lobos. So lots of incentive for them to win that division. Right now, sitting at 8, the Rockford Rail Splitters. 7, we have the Rosemount Pipers. They are 9-2. They are very good when they get their guys there. They have Cliff Christopherson, who is just an absolute ace in this league. Christopherson, can they get a guy like Mike Fritz to step up and be a solid number 2 in a postseason format? Jeremy Belial is a guy who's thrown a lot of big innings for them in the past. They will need a second starter to be able to compete with some of those top teams and give Cliff Christopherson a break. Number 6, we have the Waconia Islanders. They are 8-1, would be a 4 seed in the playoffs. Islanders have a couple of guys on the mound who are emerging as leaders, guys like Nick Frank and Adam Paternos, and Peter Brown. They have a lot of depth on the offensive side. really hit the ball, and they will be a force in the AAA. 5, we have the Tonka Bay Lakers. Time you can trot a former major leaguer out there, they're going to have a great shot at winning some really big time games in the AAA. Beyond that, I love this team because they've got guys like Brandon Wolf, who throws hard, and Scott Russert, who's certainly having a lot of success on the mound this season. Like Sten Lindquist and Troy Koenig having big seasons at the plate. At number 5, we have the Tonka Bay Lakers. Number 4, at 10-1, we have the Burnsville Bulldogs. Larson has really put this team on his back this season. He's thrown 40 innings for them. Josh Lowen, just 15 innings. You got to think that he's probably dealing with some health issues, as definitely a reduced workload comparatively what it's been in the last couple of seasons. Team is clutch. They are absolute bulldogs, aptly named at the plate. They can win a lot of big games, but do they have the pitching to play at that high of a level over the course of 2 weekends? Is definitely something that will need to be answered. Number 3, we have the Minoka Grays. Team is solid all the way around. We know so much about this team already. Great pitching. It'll help them a lot when they get Jack Nelson back from his Canadian soiree. Benefit from having a softer schedule over the last couple of weeks of the season where they can get everybody healthy, get everyone back. Question marks for them, though, or will they have the passion and the drive to be able to repeat? Playing that soft schedule lead to maybe not being as sharp in the postseason. That's been a criticism that they've heard in the past of why they couldn't get past some of those top teams. Is work hard. You can expect them to be in the mix in that final weekend. Number 2, a perfect 13-0, the East Metro Mammoth. Really great sign to see Ken Wangler throwing well for them. They will need that depth. Matt Grill seems to be a guy that can, throw multiple games or parts of multiple games in a weekend. But it's always nice to have that other arm, that other option to be able to go to. And Wangler's a veteran that certainly knows how to get outs in some big spots. Metro Mammoth will have some tests coming down the pipeline here. They get the South Metro Saints, a team that they've had some good battles with recently. They'll run into Tim Scott and the Apple Valley A's. They'll play Hastings. They'll play Rosemount. So they've got a schedule that really bodes well into playing some really tough competitive games come August. And at number 1, the Lakeville Lobos sitting at 13-0 as well. It all has been money. They have just a ton of talent up and down this lineup. They've also got some tough games coming up. They will play one of their rivals, the Newmarket Northerns, in their next game after they return from Field of Dreams. They will play Rockford. They will play Burnsville. So they've got some tests coming up as well. I expect them to be the 1 seed, which will definitely lend a helping hand in getting them to a deep run in the postseason. They are still my pick to win this whole thing. They are at number 1 in our Fed Up Power Rankings. Well, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Nick Tuckner, the voice of the Raiders, the pride of Hastings, the head Hurricane himself. Tuck, welcome to Fed Up.
Josh, how are you? Thanks for having me. I'm so excited that you asked me to come on. It's not that I was waiting for a call, but I was thinking, man, it'd be cool to be part of it because I know Hurricanes, so we really dig what you guys have been doing, and we've had a lot of fun watching from week to week, and I know some of the guys, we like to, kind of get around the water cooler, so to say, at the batting cage and stuff on a Wednesday, and a lot of times, hey, Tuck, did you see Fed Up, or is Fed Up out yet? Can you text Stoll, see when the next one's coming out? So yeah, we've really, really dug what you've done, and like I said, it's just our first year, but this has really made it really cool because, even our wives now watch this stuff. I mean, I saw a couple of friendly faces from the Mammoth you guys had on a couple of weeks ago. And, even my wife now is like, oh, well, now we got to have the real housewives of Hurricane Nation. And I'm like, honey, I don't know how many people want to get into that. I mean, but we got a good group of ladies too. So shout out to our Purple Ladies.
I appreciate the kind words and for you taking the time to come on. Well, let's talk about them Hurricanes.
Sure.
An awfully hot start to the year. You guys are sitting now at 8-2. I got a couple of games. It looks like you got to finish with Burnsville. Obviously, a ton on the line there. But go ahead and just tell us a little bit about the start and how it compares to what you guys expected.
Well, the start of everything, Josh, was kind of crazy because that first game, I've said this to so many guys in the Fed so far that, people ask me, well, Tuck, how's the season's going so far? Hey, you guys are playing well. Hey, what do you think? And I keep saying this to everybody, whether it's, other teams, other players, just people that love baseball that haven't come to a game yet. And I say to them, throughout this off season, when we announced back in the late fall last year that we were going to do this thing and make the jump and actually say, hey, we're going to go find a league. We want to, let's do this thing, because for so many years in Hastings, we've had guys that are our age, that are 35 plus, even guys back in the day. And again, this is going to be a long-winded story here, I'm sure, but it goes back to my dad, to be honest. But anyway, we'll get back to that in a second. People ask me, what do you think about the season so far? I've had so many dreams since we said we're going to do it, and not one of those dreams that I had in maybe 90 nights or whatever it was that you dream about, those nights at Vets Park, the dew starting to form on the grass, the couple of bugs up in the lights, the cheers from the crowd, the whole thing. And it was always like cool, like you're excited and you picture this really happening, but I never thought it would be, 6-2 through 8 games. We got the 2 forfeits in there too, and it just stinks. And I really am bummed for Webster, because I know, going through something like that, no team wishes that on anybody else. And we wanted to play them, and we thought it would be fun to go down there and have them up at our park. And it was a bummer, but I honestly, Josh, I never would have been able to say, oh yeah, we're going to be 8-2 through 10 or 6-2 through 8, whatever it is. In our losses coming to two very, very good teams. Man, I couldn't ask for anything more. I'd be a fool to say I don't want more. But even like let's say we went in the tank, or we all blew our arms out or something like that. I mean, it would be a success already for us, because we got the wheels going. We got the bus going. We got people on the bus now. We got, pretty much bus drivers with some of our fans and our awesome wives, like we mentioned. Our kids have been unbelievable. And it's not just our kids, but like our kids' friends and now their families all want to come out and watch. Hey, Dallas's dad plays baseball. I mean, what is this? And then they're coming out, they're buying burgers. It's becoming a thing where people want to come out and hang out. I mean, it's a destination. It's late afternoon, early evening baseball on a Sunday. And sometimes, like this weekend when we're recording this, we're getting ready to play Milltown on a Sunday evening, right? And what's going to happen is here in Hastings, the Hawks, our amateur team, will play at 2:00. And like some of the other teams do with like Milltown and Dundas, they did the same thing earlier on in the year when they played Cannon Falls. We got to hang out. They went extra innings. We got to watch a great ball game. And then all these kids, right? So from Dundas, Cannon Falls, Hastings, Milltown, Dundas, the whole thing, they're all together playing wiffle ball and pepper and all this stuff in that little auxiliary field, which, by the way, is now underwater, unfortunately. Hopefully that's getting back to normal too, but again, a whole nother story. But it's just so cool, and it's becoming, through 10 games or 8 games or whatever it is, exactly what us guys wanted it to become, and it's not over. I mean, it's only the beginning. I mean, like I said, we could go, in the final 8 games 0-8, and finish 8-10, but I still guarantee it that every fan that has come to a game, that will come to a game the rest of the season, our sponsors that have been so gracious to help us out, our families, even our like moms and dads that we're lucky to still have around, that help out even a little bit, financially, or, hey, can we buy you a box of balls, or can we do something to, help things go? And people always say, and it sounds so cliche too, but it takes a village, right? I mean, and our village just happens to have 22,500 people in it. But what we're finding out is that there are a lot of baseball fans here. And we knew that before. But for people to come out like last weekend against Lonsdale, who perennially isn't a rival of like the Hastings Hawks or the Hastings Raiders, our high school team. Lonsdale's not a perennial rival. But to have as many people as we had come out on a Sunday at 5:00, now, given it was the best weather day of the year, I mean, that was,
it was
oh
beautiful.
my gosh,
Yep.
right? we all were just like, come on, this is the best day of the year. And we get to play baseball. And not only that, we got to play in front of people who were genuinely interested. So to make a long story longer, I just want to see where we can take this thing. And not even just with the season. Like I said, we already consider this a success because we got it going and we know that it's going to continue. We have a group and a nucleus that will continue to carry this on and on. And even after we're done, we got guys that are, for the Hawks right now that are playing that are like, oh my gosh, Tuck, when you get all wrinkly and quit cannonballing into second base and hurting yourself, we're going to come up and play too. And when you hear that already, 10 games into our first ever season, the guys are already saying they want to be Hurricanes. Didn't we? I think we've won already. I mean, I really do. And it's just great to have this, guys. And we couldn't have done it without all you guys in the Fed, because a lot of you guys accepted us. You've welcomed us. It's been just fantastic. When I came into this league and talked with Dan and a couple of the other board members, and I said, look, I don't want this to be a me thing. I don't want it to be an us thing in Hastings. I want it to be an us thing for the Federal League, because I believe in this league so much after coming in with the Mammoth a few years back when they started their team, and I got my first taste of Federal League baseball, and I said, damn, this is special. I mean, this really is special. And then to kind of go back to the whole other side of the story, was talking about my dad, was that my dad just passed away last year. And before he passed, the one thing that Dad always talked with me about is, you should do what you guys do with the Mammoth down here. Why you guys have so many guys? I mean, he started rattling off names. A couple of them are on our roster going, why don't you do it? And I thought to myself, who's going to do it, Dad? Who's going to do it? And as Dad, my dad, he suffered from cancer and he battled it valiantly for 21 years. And when he was on his final, year or so, the one thing Dad looked at me and said, and I'll always take this to heart as long as I am breathing, is that nobody's ever going to do it for you. You are going to have to do things yourself, Nicholas. And I remember him looking me in the eye and him saying, you got to jump. You got to do what you want. And whether that's, in your personal life, baseball, work, family life, whatever it is, you can apply that to just about everything. And when he looked at me and said that, and we were towards the end of, I would say, our second season, as the Mammoth began, I started to think, I don't want to leave my guys. I mean, I love my guys. I mean, everyone, shout out to all my Mammoth guys. They all know they mean so much to me, and I think a lot of them pushing me. I'm not going to say pushing me out the door. I mean, let's be honest here, everybody. I was like the 15th guy out of 15 on an all-star team, right? So
that is a deep roster for sure.
Right, and I knew my job. I mean, the one thing that I always thought was funny was, and it's just chirping, right? It's just chirping. But, there'd be some, and I'm not going to name any teams or anything, but someone would chirp at me for wearing catcher shin guards, and I wasn't even in the game. And I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing to say. And I'm like, they don't realize that my job is when Mike Lippert, catcher for the Mammoth, he's just finishing up his at bat. I'm going to give him as much time as possible to get ready to catch Grilly in a playoff game. That's my job, right? You just kind of started to think, maybe I should go out and do this thing. Maybe I should take the leap and do this and do it for my town. And like I said before, I don't need to play. I was so content with being our backup, left-handed catcher wannabe. But I got to wear that brown and gold uniform and hang out with my buddies 20 times, 25 times at the playoffs a year and go to all these parks. You know what? Those, you can tease me, chirp at me all you want to, but that was my job. And if I can get 15 other guys to buy in to what I was able to buy into as a member of an all-star team, I know we could do it here in Hastings. So again, flash forward, end of my final season with the Mammoth, we just wrapped up a tough loss in the championship game to the Grays, and when I was driving home from up in I think were we up in Luxembourg? I think we were in Luxembourg for state that year.
Yep.
And it's about an hour and a half drive from Hastings, so I had a long time to kind of start to think a little bit, and I wanted to be angry or depressed about the fact that we didn't win it this time after doing it twice in a row the last 2 years. And I felt really selfish. And as soon as I kind of had that feeling, I said, all right, now you can take that step. You take that step now. You do what you feel is necessary to get that team going in Hastings. And you're going to give 15 other guys a chance to enjoy what you just enjoyed for 3 years. You had 2 championships and a runner-up in the state tournament. Find a way to bring that energy, encapsulate it, bring it down to vets, and find a way to let a bunch of guys. And that was my main goal with getting all this going, right? And again, long-winded story, to have all that stuff happen, and to us be talking at the halfway point. Like I said, it's for me, it's hard to think about and process because the words can't come out. Because still, right now, I'm still thinking back to that first game against Vesely when we're all standing on the line and the anthem's playing and I got tears running down my face because you kind of knew, hey, it happened. Hey, you got to this point. You got to the anthem. Now go out and play. Go out and play. So we've gone out and played, and it's been a blast. It wasn't fun getting spanked by the Lobos, but it's been fun. It's been so much.
You are not alone in being rough handled by the Lobos this season. They are certainly having a very special year. But maybe we should have seen the writing on the wall for you guys to do something this special. There's so many elements of what you're talking about that go into forming a good culture, forming a winning team, coming over from the Mammoth and knowing your role and accepting your role and finding guys like-minded in terms of that. Maybe there's a little divine magic, with the aspect of your father. I'm sorry for that loss, but I can understand just hearing your passion and your desire to really get this going, and then the way that you just vividly described your vision, going into it. It shouldn't be a surprise, at least to me now, what you guys have accomplished already this season. We had you here, in the preseason special. We had no idea what to pick you at. A lot of your guys were new to the league. We had you at 9-9. We did prop you up as those single A champs.
We liked it.
Yeah. Well, you guys are far exceeding that expectation so far. It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, we got a great group of guys. That's what we wanted to do. What you just said too, like-minded guys. And I think that the one thing that when I was talking with Nate Otto, who played for, Newmarket, of course, he's a Hastings boy. We played together growing up for so many years. He and I played together for the Meesville Mud Hens for a few years back in the early 2000s. I can't believe it was like 20 years ago, but Nate was probably one of my favorite teammates, playing town ball because he's so intense, but he cares so much. And he cares. He's a human. You know what I mean? Like, he's got a heart like nobody else. He's intense on the field, but like many of our teammates that have that intensity inside of them, those guys are always the biggest teddy bears, And I love just razzing odds and giving them hugs and stuff. I'm a huggy guy. Any of my teammates from the Mammoth know and I hate to say it like this, huggy, touchy, feely. I'm that guy on the bench. I'm goofing around. I'm doing all sorts of weird stuff. But yeah, Otto's just a great dude. Having Derek Pfeffer, man. I knew that he wanted to get back into baseball. He was an ace for the Hastings Hawks for many years, took 10, 12 years off to raise his family, and he just turned 40 the game that we came over and played you guys, and he's lights out, but again, like-minded, right? Great human. He's an A+ human. He teaches the game of baseball to kids. That's what he does for his job. He is a baseball instructor by trade, and to have a baseball instructor, not only that, we have 2 of them, by the way. Adam Bardo, one of our pitchers, he's the owner of the Minnesota Blizzard Academy. A lot of everybody that's been around baseball know about the Blizzard Academy and all the prospects they put into the pros year in and year out. And Adam we're lucky enough to have him as one of our pitchers. So we got two guys that literally teach the game of baseball, every day. And those guys are on our team. And not only that, like I said, again, A-plus guys. I mean, it's not just the fact that they know the game so well. They're A-plus guys. And then you got Taylor Pagel, the other, Newmarket guy that we stole. Pegs is a Hastings guy now. He was the Hastings Raiders varsity baseball coach for many years. So I worked with Pegs very intently. That those guys kind of were the nucleus that created the beast, if you will. I mean, the eye of the storm. I mean, that's kind of the 4 or 5-some that really got things going in the right direction. And then after that, it was weird because I had a couple of guys. I put a post even like on Facebook and Twitter and stuff when we created our team logo and whatever, saying, hey, if there's any guys out there that live in towns exclusively, I wanted to just put this out to people in Hastings first because it meant a ton to me to have a bunch of Hastings guys on the team first. And I had a couple guys that reached out to me that weren't from Hastings originally, but they had either married a Hastings gal and now they live here,
Sure.
or they moved into the community or whatever it is, and that's how we got Daniel Castillo and also Brent Complin. BK is actually a pastor up at the Harbor Church just north of Hastings. So he brings just a calm, he's again A+ human. I mean, you have a problem, you go to BK, he will make you giggle and laugh and just take your mind off of whatever it may be. And then, not only that, then he'll go up and have 3 hits in the game, and you just feel so good for him because he's so awesome. So yeah, Brent's like that. Castillo, he came up from Texas. Him and his wife live in Hastings. He played a little college baseball, trying to get back into it. He's been away from the game for a long time, but when you look at Daniel, you'll see, I mean, he's got the man muscles. I mean, he's number 33 if you guys have played him. Yeah, you look at him, he honestly, to me, like when I look at Daniel face to face, he reminds me a lot of Carlos Correa. He's got that same build, that same body, the facial hair. Like you look at him, and that's kind of how he is as a player. I mean, he's athletic, fantastic. And again, those guys just moved into town, but they're Hastings guys now. So we kind of, our Hastings brethren, so to speak, took these guys in, and we've really made them part of our unit. And now hopefully, and I'm not trying to speak for them, you could ask either one of those two guys maybe sometime too, but that, I think they feel part of something now. I mean, when you move into a town, just like I was saying, like when you come into a league, you feel like you're on an island at first because you don't know how other teams are going to react. And I think that joining a new team and you meet all these new guys and you're playing in a sport where you're competing, you don't know how those guys are going to react. Oh, I want to perform in front of them. We're macho guys. We got to look good in front of the other guys, to be successful. That's the way you become a player, and I kind of beg to differ sometimes because, we got, like I said, this group of guys that adopted these men in and said, no, you're a Hastings guy now. You're us. You're like us. And that's all that matters. It says Hastings here. There's a little hurricane logo here. But that first, what's that word say here? That says Hastings. Well, this says Minnesota. This is my Vikings hoodie. But on our jerseys, it says Hastings right on the front. And that was purposely done because that's who we're doing this for first. This is for our community. And we wanted that to be known. And with Danny and Brent, and even Steve Bale, he's from Cottage Grove. I played with him for many years with the Cottage Grove Coyotes back in the old TCMABL days. And Stevie came over here, hit 2 bombs the other night, added a double against Lakeville. He was like the only guy that could get anything off of Donnie Erdahl, who was awesome. And he even threw a couple knucklers at me, and I thought that was appreciative, by the way, out of your 9-hitter. But no, it was Donnie threw a great game, but Stevie got him for 2 home runs in their little park over there and hit a double. And he's a Cottage Grove guy, but he too lives in Hastings, and he's a coach in our youth community, and he's well known within the youth baseball community. And now, like, these kids are hearing that Coach Steve plays baseball. Coach Steve hit 2 home runs. What? I mean, you see these kids' eyes just bulge through their
Yeah.
head. I mean, and Steve is the most humble. He doesn't say boo to anybody. And that made him feel good too. So I mean, I could keep going on and on. I'm going to eat up your whole podcast, but that's what our team's all about, and it's a dream, dude. I mean, I'm living a dream honestly right now, and whether, like I said, whether we win or lose, the rest of our games, the rest of the season, we've already started something pretty special, buddy.
I love it, and congrats for you, just for getting it rolling. Like you said, that can oftentimes be the hardest part, and
Yep. Oh yeah.
the success on the field can oftentimes be secondary. But
Right.
congrats to you on just forming the team. I love the colors, love the logo, putting a great group of guys together. And you talk so passionately about your tie. Yeah, there you go, repping. You talk so passionately about your ties to the Hastings community. Obviously, you've been a part of that community for much of your life. I know you went to high school there, and I know you went on to become the voice of the Raiders, and you've had a very long and successful career, the voice of the Raiders. Talk a little bit about that time in your life, and first tell me how you got started in that role.
That's a longer story than how the Hurricanes came to be. But no, it's man, it was all happenstance. I mean, I got done with 2 years at Inver Hills. You're kind of that, where do I want to transfer? What do I want to do mode, right? After 2 years, you get a little piece of paper saying, all right, well, you got to go to the next step, find a big school and get moving. And I said, you know what? I really think that my kind of overly outgoing personality really lent itself well to getting into some sort of media, whether it be, I really wanted to get into television or radio. I mean, I didn't have really a preference, but I knew it was going to be something down that wavelength. I mean, my family could tell you stories. I mean, my mom still loves telling these stories, and they've been told every year at Christmas, it seems like, when the weather comes on, and we're all gathered around the tree or whatever, and mom would be like, well, I remember when Nick was little and he was like 3 years old and he was acting like Dave Dahl from Channel 5 and telling us all about the weather and this and that, and I could tell you I could drive by the billboards in the cities, and you'd see the Channel 5 billboards, and I'd see Stan Turner and, Dave Dahl and Bob Bruce. And it was kind of a thing that, like, even as a youth, my family kind of thought that was probably going to be maybe my calling, right? So anyway, I get done at Inver, and the sports director's job opened up at KDWA in Hastings, which is my hometown. I joke with everybody that I've lived in Hastings all 43 years of my life, except for 2 days, and that was the 2 days I spent at St. Paul Ramsey Hospital when I was born. So I was born in St. Paul, but I only spent 2 days there. The rest of my life I've been in Hastings. So that tells you how much of a townie I am. So when that job opened up, now, to bring you back, I had done some freelance stuff with like a sports show on KDWA back when I was just out of high school. Like, I'd help out. Basically, it was a call-in person that would, talk about high school sports and, things I was pretty familiar with. And the boss was like, well, who is this guy? Who is this Nick guy that you always have on? He sounds good on the air. And at that time I was 18, 19. And if I could flash back and let you hear some of my first air checks of like maybe, a hockey game or a baseball game, and you'd hear me then and then hear me now, it's totally night and day. So, I'm like, how could I sound good? I mean, the fact that he said that back then, and I know how I work today, it's like, I was good back then? I mean, really? Oh my gosh. Excuse me. But he basically, after the sports director left, said, hey, I want to have you come in and see if you might be interested in working as the sports director here. And, I'm just out of high school, 2 years out of junior college, and I'm going, okay, I have nothing else better to do. I'm getting ready to turn 21 and getting, party age. I'm thinking, oh, wait, man, I'm going to have lots of money. I'm going to be a radio guy. I'm going to get all this money. And then I'm thinking, oh, what the hell? Let's go. So I went into Brown College, and I was sitting in the parking lot, literally ready to go in to talk to Terry Miller, who was their placement director back when Brown College was around, and he worked in Twin Cities media for years and years and years and years. And Terry had called me and said, Nick, why don't you come in and check out the school? See, this would be great. We could place you at some station, get you going. And I'm not kidding you, not longer than 5 minutes after I got off the phone with Terry Miller, Dan Massman, my boss at KDWA, and has been my boss, he's the owner of KDWA, called me and said, why don't you just come try it? See what you think. Come work 3 hours a day. You're done with college. You don't have anything else to do. I was delivering pizzas at Pizza Man, just, taking my tips and spending them as kids do at the casino down the road or whatever. If you're from Hastings, right? I mean, you're going to go down to Treasure Island, or you're going to go, do something else. But that's a whole nother story too. But but yeah, I mean, so I ended up going in there. He had me doing 3 hours a day. I knew I was a creature of habit when I was still working 8 hours a day because I loved it. I didn't want to leave. And I thought, this is fun. And when I started to tell myself that it was fun to go to work, I'd wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to go do radio stuff all day and get paid for it. But I love the job. And then it went from doing daily interviews with coaches to, hey, let's check you out on how you can do, how you do doing play-by-play. And they didn't, know I had a little bit of experience doing some TV play-by-play back in the late 90s when Hastings was going to state in just about everything. I was actually doing some things for our cable TV, but it was run by the students. We had our own news program, so I was kind of our school's play-by-play, our sports guy. And it was, I ate it up. It was a great time. I thought it was awesome. So I got into I started doing the same thing, but doing it for a high school and getting paid to do it. And I got sucked in. I got sucked in, and I've been doing this for this will be my 22nd year total. I took 2 years off. Around the time my dad passed, I kind of wanted to prove to Dad, too, that I could get a big boy job and work something that's not just radio, some fluff job, and I ended up actually getting into automotive technology over at Cernahouse Chevrolet over in Prescott, who's one of our sponsors, too, by the way. Thanks, Ron. But I went right back. After, like I said, after Dad passed, I took about 4 or 5 months off, just totally off. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do after I lost my pops. I was the oldest. Dad had me when he was 18. I'm really close to my parents. We're so close in age, it was hard not to be. I love the job. I get to be around these kids and these coaches. They're so excited. It's so fun to kind of relive memories that you might have had, and knowing what that felt like. You can kind of get that feeling again watching the kids celebrate, score their first goal, kick a game-winning field goal in overtime. That stuff's great. And to be able to tell those stories, whether it's via play-by-play, daily interview stuff. We do shows. They're not necessarily podcasts, but radio shows, at certain places around the community. When you get to meet these kids, they become part of your family and vice versa. I've had stacks of grad party invitations every year that sure. If I went to every one of them, I'd be so poor because I'd have to put like 20, 30, 40 bucks in each one. I don't make enough money in radio. And I'm going to tell you that you don't make a lot of money in radio. Where you actually try to make your money is doing like advertising sales, right? So sure. You want to make, you reach out to businesses. Part of my job at KDWA, besides being sports director, is being the director of community outreach. And that's right up my alley. I love reaching out to businesses, community members, people on our school board, people on our city council. Our mayor, Mary Fassbender, is one of the most fun human beings I've ever been around. She threw out our first pitch against
Oh, great.
Bessie. She's a
Yeah.
big Canes fan, and so shout out Mayor Mary too. But yeah, it's hard not to love doing this stuff in our own community. And like I said, you're just the same as everybody else. And I think that's what makes it fun too, because when you go in somewhere, it's like, oh my gosh, the radio's here. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. It's more like, oh my God, Tuck's here. What's he want? That's fun. I like that. So yeah, to make a long story longer, again, I absolutely love working in small town media. Do I wish I made more money? Yup. If anybody's got any part-time jobs you want me to
sure.
do, no, I'm just teasing. But it's thank God my wife makes a lot more money than I do to take care of our family. No, I think she might have heard me in the other room, but yeah, no, I love it, buddy. I appreciate the question because I there's not many times that I'm on the other side of the interview, right? So it's kind of fun to actually have this opportunity too. So, but I want to turn the tables on you now. Because you have been the host. You have been the host, John Stoll, all season long. And guess what? We are going to turn the tables on you. And we are going to interview Josh Stoll. And I am going to do the interview right now with you. Now, Tuck here on Fed Up. And I am joined by the Apple Valley A's manager and spiritual leader in Josh Stoll. And he's also the usual host of this program, Fed Up. And for the next few moments, this will be Tuck Daddy time as I will pepper the usual host with questions. Mr. Stoll, first of all, I want to ask you, how did you get involved with the A's? Now, did you create the A's? Did you bring them forth? Or did you take over this team from maybe somebody else and have now molded it into what it's become? How have you kind of gotten your team going? I want to know from your perspective how that's gone for you.
All right. Well, yeah, this is very unexpected, but I'm gonna run with it. I love it. I think we found our co-host maybe for the foreseeable future here too. So, no, I was very blessed to when I moved to Woodbury, I was looking for a 35 and older team. I reached out to two teams, one of them being the Rosemount Pipers and one of them being the Apple Valley A's. I would give Ken Fry a bunch of grief, but Ken told me he was good. They had their roster and they didn't need any help. So and a couple of actually players on our team have a similar story with Ken. But the A's were very welcoming. Got to come out and play with them. They've been around since 1980. They've been members of the Classic League, the Federal League, the old Galkey League, as they call it. So they've been around for quite some time. A lot of success, a lot of state championships. So a lot of great history with our ball club. But we were at kind of a crossroads my first year in terms of the leader of the ball club. Mr. Mike Scora had done it for a long time, and he was really great at it. But he was at a phase in his life where he wanted to spend some more time on the lake, and just felt a gap there that we needed a consistent voice. And I raised my hand, and it's been a pretty fun ride ever since.
What would be for you, because I have really, throughout the first 8 games, wanted to ask this to a manager, and it's nice to have Schmitty up with the Mammoth, because I can always text him and get a phone call back or whatever, and we go into a 2-hour conversation over beers over the phone. But I want to ask you, what do you feel is the toughest part of managing a team? Because for me, Josh, it's my first year, so I'll probably delegate some of this in the future, but there's so much that goes into it. If I was to ask you what the toughest part of being a manager on your side is, what would that be and why?
I guess, and I know Schmitty's definitely a guy who struggles with this. It's just having conviction around what you want your team to be and what's most important. Everyone likes to win, and it's nice to be, lumped in those conversations with the AAA or AA, or competing at the top levels, and obviously winning's a lot of fun, but I think we've made a conscious decision in Apple Valley that culture is going to come first, and just getting guys the innings and excuse me, keeping guys engaged and playing, and that definitely is a priority of ours. And so we know that there's maybe a game or two, over the season that we might have had a different result had we played the roster another way, but we just really want to stay convicted on providing opportunities for guys to keep playing this game.
To kind of wrap it up, I want to ask you, how tough is it for you to actually kind of come up with the rankings without pulling your hair out every single week? Because I know you probably hear so much guff, crap, whatever, from teams. It is just chirping. I know it's just chirping. But the guys, you had us first last week. Well, what made us, but how tough is that? Because you don't want to make anybody cranky. You don't want to make anybody put one in your ribs for no reason. You could think of different reasons, as a baseball player, why you wouldn't want to do that, right? How tough is it for you to kind of go through the thing and say, all right, here it goes, and then push send and just wait for all the drama to brew up after you do it? I mean, what's that like every single week?
Yeah, I guess I do my best to try and remove the bias from it. Teams that I've seen this year, or games that I've been to and just experienced firsthand. Versus, obviously, I can't make it around to 35 different teams and see them firsthand. But doing my best to remove the bias of it. After you guys beat us, I had to throw you up in there. Because Pfeffer is just a legit ace, and you guys, that was early in the season, but I could tell that you guys were really onto something, pretty special there. And had I not seen you in person, it might have taken a little bit longer to slip you up there. So yeah, just trying to remove my bias. So that's difficult. Obviously it doesn't take an educated genius to know that Lakeville, East Metro, the Mammoth, they're all going to be, on the podium up there. They've been so good so long in this league. So
here's the last one for you for this Tuck Asks Stoli segment. Now, yeah, how do I put this? Okay, so if there's a team that right now is standing in either the B or the A grouping, that you as a manager would say, that's not the team I need to be playing before playoffs, or even in the bracket, A bracket, B bracket, whatever it would be, what is a team that would just irk you to have to play, knowing that you might be on a roll before playoffs? This team might kind of be in the weeds as a trap game. What's one of those teams that you've noticed through the years that might be down towards the bottom or in the middle that could come up and snipe you pretty good here before the end of the season and really wake you up before you hit the bracket?
Yeah, great question. And, I have to put in a plug for my guys. I like to, again, try and remove some of the bias, but, we're sitting at 3-5, and if the season were to end today, we would be the 8th seed in the A bracket. And, anytime you've got a guy like, Tim Scott that you can march out there, and with the depth that we have and the hitters that we have, we haven't really been getting our guys there consistently to this point. But, when that calendar flips, usually after the 4th of July, we start to get guys there a little bit more consistently because the youth sports are wrapping up. So I don't expect us to stay in the A bracket. I expect us to finish higher in the AA, but we're definitely one of those teams right now. The TC Snappers, what Jeff Wilson does there, he just cranks out winners year after year after year. So they're right now would be the 1 seed in the A, and that's certainly a team to look out for. The St. Michael Angels, I think, is another one with Pluff. Anytime you have a legit ace like that and can go out and win any game you decide you want to go get, that's definitely a team. And then maybe from the B bracket, maybe the RC Rockets, once they get Colin Warren back, they're a team that I think can be a really tough out. And then the St. Croix Silverbacks too. They are just a team that they're getting a little older, but they hit the ball a ton. And if you if you throw fastballs, they're going to get you. You know, they're going to bop that ball around the ballpark, and they're definitely a team that I think could challenge for that B title this year if they end up there.
Yeah, those guys, the Silverbacks, they were always one of my favorite teams to play just because there were so many veterans. There were, Dougie Burfeld, Tim Kimmel, some of those guys that, a lot of us have grown up knowing and recognizing just as youth watching amateur baseball and then coming up and actually playing with and against some of these guys. I mean, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, they might be getting a little, grayer in the beard or in the hair or whatever, but man, those guys could still mash. I mean, they is some of the guys that you might think are a veteran player, they can hit just as good, if not better, than some of the elite talent on any of the teams. So yeah, those guys, they're sticks, man. They could, and they're trying to find some sneaky arms too. So that's always a team. I agree with you, Ash. You've been just awesome, and to all the guys and gals that have come on as guests. You guys have all been tremendous, and I've had nothing but good things to say about what you've done, buddy. So I personally appreciate hearing a little bit about your side of things, and I can't wait to see what the A's do the rest of the year too, because I think just because, not just that we know each other, but because we're not the same, pod or division.
Yeah.
You kind of pull for other squads, right? I mean, you can kind of have favorite teams, and like you said, I mean, I love playing Kenny and Cliff and the guys from Rosemont and those fellas, and I mean, playing you guys was a blast. I mean, just because it was such a dang good game and two great pitchers, and I mean, we could do that. I think 10 times, and we'll go 5-5, and then we'll all go out and split cases of beer afterwards, and we'd have. I think that would be so much fun if we got to have a best of 10 series this fall. A's and Hurricanes. I think maybe us two guys can pull something off and have a little fun with that. But man, yeah, it's great when we get to come play you guys and to go play teams. I can't wait to play the Mammoth. Obviously. It's people are when they think, oh, you want to go beat the Mammoth, you want to beat the Mammoth. Yeah, you want to beat your friends. Of course you want to beat your friends.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not that type of rival. It's not like we're trying to go, I want to go Bean Schmitty or Cork or whatever. I'm probably, the first thing I'm going to do is give Lippert a giant hug. And then after that, I usually what I do is try to find a way to like wrap my arms around Grilly and just kind of squeeze him a little bit and give him that big hug. I think I've missed that throughout the season too. And Schmitty, just him and Scotty Sievert, two of my best buddies and two of my biggest supporters. I love those guys, and I can't wait to play them. It's going to be fun. But yeah, we're just, like I said, bud, we're learning on the fly. We're having fun with it. And people that read our Twitter have to realize, and I think you guys watching this now realize how goofy and talkative and just flat out nuts I am. I mean, that's what you're seeing on Twitter, peeps. Okay. So understand that when I talk, folks, it's half tongue-in-cheek, half BS, and the rest is just spit. So we're just having fun with it, okay? I mean, all you guys that might take our Twitter a little bit too seriously, please don't. Look at the goofball who runs it, okay? This PSA has been brought to you by the Hastings Hurricanes amateur baseball team. Yeah.
I love it. I love the disclaimer. That game, the Hastings Hurricanes and the East Metro Mammoth, coming up on July 19th. So towards the end of the season, could say a lot about just what the seeds end up being in that AAA. Looking forward to that matchup. We get the East Metro Mammoth the Friday before on July 12th.
Yep.
A really fun, unexpected twist to kind of flip roles there. Appreciate you doing that. Clearly you have recognized your calling. You do have an amazing gift, Nick. Being with the radio personality that you've had, award-winning personality. So tons of recognition from the Minnesota State High School League and the city of Hastings, the school, Hastings High School. So just a lot of great awards that have been so accurately bestowed upon you. But really enjoyed having you on the podcast, getting to know you a little bit better, hearing some of your stories. Looking forward to just following you guys the rest of the year and wishing you a ton of success on the field and off.
I'll put my A's hat back on when I get off the podcast with you, buddy. I appreciate your time, bud. I mean, thank you so much. Hurricanes, appreciate you, and good luck, A's, and good luck to all the teams the rest of the season. If we don't see you, really looking forward to everything here come playoff time. Thanks, buddy.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for being on. That is all the time we have for this edition of Fed Up. I hope you enjoyed Mr. Nick Tuckner as much as I did. Just a ton of personality, a ton of fun, and a great addition to the league are those Hastings Hurricanes. Going to be fun to follow them the rest of the season. A lot of big baseball coming up after the Independence Day break, but enjoy your holiday, and we will see you next week.